South Korea has established diplomatic ties with Syria, the last remaining country that had no diplomatic relationship with Seoul, also a longtime ally of North Korea. The archives testifying the painful history of civilian massacres in Jeju were added to UNESCO's Memory of the World Register for their universal values of human rights and reconciliation. As rival parties gear up for their primaries, Liberal standard-bearer Lee Jae-myung lays out his global vision for the country, while People Power Party lawmaker Yoon makes her presidential bid official, among others. It's April 11th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. Today, we begin with a notable change in diplomacy. South Korea has forged diplomatic ties with Syria, a staunch ally of North Korea. Seoul now has formal relations with all UN members, with the exception of Pyongyang. The country's foreign minister made a rare visit to Syria for this event. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has this report.
Syria has now become the 194th country in the world to form diplomatic relations with South Korea, marking a milestone for the country as it now has formal ties with all UN member states except North Korea. Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol visited Syria's capital city Damascus this week and signed a joint statement on Thursday local time with his counterpart Assad al-Shaibani.
By establishing diplomatic relations with Syria, the last remaining country with which we had no diplomatic ties, South Korea has now reached a historic milestone of establishing diplomatic relations with all 191 UN member states.
The two sides held a meeting where Cho said South Korea is willing to contribute to reconstruction efforts in Syria and discussed the possibility of Korean companies participating in rebuilding the country. He also promised Seoul would provide humanitarian assistance, including medicine, medical equipment, and rice. During his visit, Cho also met the country's interim president, Ahmed al-Shara, and said taking a firm stance against extremism and eliminating chemical weapons will help create an environment conducive to the country's development. South Korea started to work on forging diplomatic ties with Syria after more than 13 years of war recently put an end to the brutal Assad dictatorship, which had maintained a close relationship with North Korea for decades. The Assad family regime, which ruled the country for more than 50 years, collapsed in December during a major offensive by opposition forces. Syria has had diplomatic ties with North Korea since 1966, but the fall of the dictatorship brought about a significant shift in its relations with Pyongyang. Now that South Korea has forged ties with nations that have been close allies of the North, including Cuba last year, this latest diplomatic development is expected to further isolate Pyongyang on the global stage. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
In other news, the UNESCO has recognized the archives documenting the painful memory of state violence against civilians in Jeju decades ago as its Memory of the World Register in honor of human rights and reconciliation. Park Hyo-bin has more.
The road to remembrance begins with tragedy. In the aftermath of Korea's liberation, Jeju Island faced severe economic hardship, leading to growing public unrest. Tensions boiled over in 1947 when police opened fire during a demonstration, killing 6 civilians. In response to increasing crackdowns involving far-right youth groups, local units of the Workers' Party launched an armed uprising on April 3, 1948. Over the next 7 years, there were an estimated 15,000 civilian casualties, while some estimate the number of victims to be as high as 30,000. After decades of efforts to uncover the truth, the Jeju 4-3 archives were officially added to UNESCO's Memory of the World Register on Thursday local time in Paris. This recognition honors a rich collection of materials, records of military trials, postcards from imprisoned survivors, and the government's official report. UNESCO acknowledged the archive's historical value, authenticity, and global significance, highlighting its role in confronting past state violence and restoring the dignity of the victims.
The inscription of the Jeju 4-3 incident highlights the universal value of human rights and offers a new path forward through Jeju's spirit of reconciliation and healing.
Also, the Reforestation Archive, which records Korea's large-scale forest recovery after the Korean War, was added to UNESCO's Memory of the World list. The reforestation project is now considered a model case for developing nations and a valuable reference in global discussions on climate action and desertification prevention.
The Reforestation Archive showcases Korea's post-war recovery efforts and serves as a global model for climate action and desertification prevention.
With these additions, South Korea now has 20 entries in UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, bolstering its global reputation as a leader in preserving documentary heritage. Beyond preserving the past, these records continue to speak to the world, reminding us of the enduring power of truth, resilience, and collective memory. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
As the Trump administration reconsiders its military footprint abroad, U.S. commanders are warning that cutting troops in South Korea could raise the risk of a North Korean invasion and expand China's influence. Kim Jong-sil reports.
At a U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on Thursday, Admiral Samuel Paparo, head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, warned that cutting American troops in South Korea would heighten the risk of a North Korean invasion. He explained that the absence of U.S. forces on the Korean peninsula would raise the probability of Kim Jong-un taking military action. Paparo added that a reduction in troop numbers would inherently weaken America's ability to respond to conflict on the peninsula and increase the risk of Chinese involvement. General Xavier Bronson, commander of U.S. Forces Korea, echoed those concerns, calling a reduction in troop presence, quote, problematic. He stressed that American forces not only deter the North, but also play a vital role in checking Russian and Chinese influence in the region. Brunson also pointed to the historical weight of the mission, reminding lawmakers that U.S. troops have helped preserve peace and stability in the region for more than 75 years. While no formal policy shift has been announced, the Pentagon's top commanders made it clear that a troop withdrawal from the Korean peninsula would carry serious consequences. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Turning to the renewed trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. U.S. tariffs on China now jump to 145%, with the pre-existing penalty added for fentanyl issues. Meantime, officials in Washington hinted at a possible dialogue with Beijing. An Sung-jin has the details.
The trade war between the United States and China has only intensified. The tit-for-tat levies continue as China announced that it will be raising its tariffs for U.S. imports from 84% to 125% starting from April 12th. The Chinese Customs Tariff Commission of the State Council noted on Friday that further on it will disregard any further tariff increases by the U.S. on Chinese goods. Beijing has continuously criticized Washington, calling out the tariffs as self-interested actions, while also denouncing them for violating the rules of world trade. It had responded with various retaliatory measures, including non-tariff measures such as reducing the number of American movie imports and reducing travel and study abroad to the U.S.
We will not sit idly by and let the Chinese people be deprived of their legitimate rights and interests. If the U.S. insists on fighting a tariff war or trade war, China will fight to the end.
This comes after the White House had hiked its tariffs on Chinese imports to 145%. Trump had raised the tariffs on all Chinese imports to 125% on Wednesday, and within 24 hours after China imposed its previous 84%, the U.S. raised them to the current 145%. Since the Trump administration's second term began, tariffs on Chinese imports have jumped from 54 to 104, 125, and 145% over the course of a week.
We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond nobody, how people stood for it, sitting in my position is not even believable.
However, White House officials hinted they were waiting for China to make the first move, as Trump said that China wants to make a deal. As the two enter a prolonged trade war, pundits say that this may threaten the global economy. According to the New York Times, approximately 13% of U.S. imports were from China, suggesting that the cost of living for American consumers is likely to increase. Companies have also been pessimistic amid the uncertainty, with American factories canceling orders from China and Chinese manufacturers reducing operations. Despite Trump pausing his reciprocal tariffs on other countries for 90 days, flames from the ongoing trade war with China continue to burn, raising concerns on a global scale. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The government is poised to provide over 9 trillion won, about $6 billion in financial support for export businesses. The plan was announced during a meeting led by Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok on Friday. The package includes loans at lower rates and crucial funding for operations. A dedicated task force will also be set up to address changes in supply chains. On the local political front, where the race for the top office is heating up, the former head of the Democratic Party shared his vision for South Korea as a potential global leader. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Former Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung, now a preliminary presidential candidate, has pledged to make South Korea a first mover on the global stage. He laid out his campaign vision for a new government at the National Assembly on Friday, elaborating on the K initiative he introduced during his candidacy announcement the day before. He explained that while South Korea grew by emulating the successes of other countries, there are no clear models or answers to follow.
I will take South Korea into a new era of global leadership. This is the vision of the K initiative. To survive in today's fierce global battleground, I'm calling for a paradigm shift from copying to leading.
A recent poll released on Friday shows that Lee remains the front-runner among presidential hopefuls. A survey conducted by Gallup from Tuesday to Thursday on 1,005 adults aged 18 and over shows that Lee is the most favored candidate to be the next president at 37%. However, the DP has yet to announce its primary election rules or plans. The party is reportedly debating methods to select its candidate. One possible option is based on the results of a party membership vote for 50% and public opinion polls also for 50%. However, candidates outside Lee's faction are pushing for an open primary where the outcome is determined entirely by a public vote. Former DP lawmaker Kim Do-gun and governor of Gyeonggi-do province Kim Dong-yeon, who both announced their bids earlier this week, have raised concerns, saying candidates are not being included in the discussions. The party aims to select its presidential candidate by early May. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the People Power Party is planning to make its partisan primary election more appealing to those in their 20s and 30s. The party's primaries will require contenders to put on heart monitors during debates, as well as partake in speed games and to include in their introductions their personality type as evaluated via the MBTI test. As of today, 9 party members have voiced their intentions to run in the presidential race, including 5-term lawmaker Na Kyung-won, who declared her decision earlier this afternoon. Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon is scheduled to share his bid on the 13th, while Hong Jun-pyo resigned from his Daegu mayor post today and is set to make his bid on the 14th. Impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol today moved out of the presidential residence and into his private residence. Releasing a message through his legal representatives, Yoon said he will return to being an ordinary citizen and seek new ways to help the nation and its people. The move comes precisely 1 week after the Constitutional Court ruled to uphold his impeachment. The ruling strips him of all presidential benefits, with the exception of some 40 security officials. He also faces a criminal trial on charges of insurrection, with a hearing set for Monday next week. Shifting gears, the iconic Cherry Blossom Festival at Yeouido here in the capital is in full bloom. Our Choi Soo-hyung covers these annual sights of the spring season.
It's cherry blossom season now in South Korea. Many people have come to Yeouido in Seoul to see the beautiful cherry blossoms fully blooming in the warm spring weather. Visitors enjoy a nice spring walk along the 1.7 kilometers long Yunjungno Road right by the National Assembly building.
This is one of the most famous hotspots to sightsee and enjoy the cherry blossoms in the capital city, Seoul.
This year's Cherry Blossom Festival in Yeouido started on Tuesday. Over 1,800 cherry blossom trees are planted here, circling around the National Assembly building and right next to the Hangang River. With rain in the forecast for the weekend, many people came to hang out and enjoy the flowers, even though it's a weekday.
We came here as a vacation, but we were not planning to see this beautiful blossoms that are going on right now with the beauty of spring. And so we are very grateful to be here and see the beauty of this beautiful park. It's just exploding with color, and the blossoms are absolutely stunning.
My baby just turned 1, so this is the first time seeing flowers like this. It was really fun and joyful. My baby really loved it too.
Actually, this is my first time coming to the Yeouido Cherry Blossom Festival. It's also the first time for my baby, so I'm really happy to be here. The weather is nice too, so we're enjoying the flowers a lot.
Facilities such as shelters for light picnics, photo zones and temporary health centers have been set up for visitors. It also has a special barrier-free tour program for people who are visually impaired. They can walk around Yeouido Park with a guide, touch the flowers to feel them, and enjoy the sound of the street performances. For those who want to know the best spots to enjoy this stunning view, use Exit 1 of National Assembly subway station on subway line number 9 or Exit 2 of Yeouido Station on line number 5. The festival was supposed to start on April 4th last Friday, but it was delayed as this fell on verdict day for former President Yoon's impeachment trial. Because of that, the festival will continue until Saturday, April 12th. To run the festival, Yeongdeung-pogu office will close some parts of the road behind the National Assembly and traffic restrictions will stay in place until Sunday, April 13th. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
It's Friday and we're back with our arts and culture segment. Joining us in the studio is our culture correspondent, Song Yoo-jin. Welcome, Yoo-jin.
Great to be back, Jung-min.
Great to have you back. What do you have for us today?
Well, Jung-min, we often hear that Korean culture such as K-pop or K-content is putting Korea on the map. But today, interestingly, I have a story about an illustrator who's quite literally putting Korea on the map. First, take a look.
You know Gwanghwamun Gate, but you've never seen it quite like this. This is how UK-based map artist Jenni Sparks reimagined one of Seoul's most iconic landmarks. For over a decade, her hand-drawn maps have covered major cities across the West, such as London, New York, Paris, and Berlin. Now she's turning her creative compass toward Asia, starting with Seoul.
Like the traditional architecture is extremely different from all the cities that I've done before. I think also like the actual geography of the place, it's very like mountainous, including in like the middle of the city.
This idea sparked when Seol Jae-woo, who runs a local tour business in Seoul, reached out to Sparks a few years ago.
Maps are usually seen as just information, useful in the moment, but often forgotten after. Jenni Sparks' map, however, felt like a work of art. So I thought, what if we could create a map people would treasure, one that tells a story of the place they live?
That question led to Sparks creating a map of Seoul's Seochon neighborhood before setting her sights on the entire city. It's halfway done, but already you can see what makes her maps so unique. It's not just the pop art style design or the bold use of color, but the sheer level of detail, including hidden gems like Tongin Market in Jongno-gu district. That insight comes from her rigorous research, her first and most important step through books and videos. She then sketches out the bones of the city, rivers, mountains, parks, and metro lines before layering in Seoul's soul.
I will usually ask people from that city and say, is this right? Or like, take a look at this. Is there anything you're like, this is absolutely wrong? Like, no, why you've forgotten this building, or this is this is a really famous cafe, this is a really famous restaurant you have. And then right at the end, it's just kind of just drawing like lots of residential buildings. And
it's a challenging process that takes months, but the map in the end becomes something more than directions. It becomes a story, one you can hold in your hands and revisit.
Fascinating work.
Right.
So Eugene, the Seoul map is still a work in process, progress. When can we expect to see the finished version?
Well, I asked Ms. Sparks the same question, and she said that the completion will be sometime around the summer, but we can't exactly say for sure because it's a creative process. So it's really hard to give an exact timeline because she is starting with a completely blank sheet of paper and building everything from scratch. So it could take more time. But one of the final steps in her process, as mentioned in my report, is to talk to locals to make sure all the important places and details are accurately captured, which is the reason why she is considering visiting Seoul soon towards the end of the project to really walk around the city and make some final touches in person.
And while we wait for the Seoul map, we do have the completed Seochon map.
Right.
So what are some highlights or details to look out for?
Well, I also asked that to Ms. Sparks, and she chose the area surrounding the Tongin Market, which was also mentioned in my report, also the Seochon Gallery District, and also the Gyeongbokgung Palace. And Mr. Seol pointed out to the small neighborhood shops and the tiger statue on Yeouido Mountain, details which really show just how intricately her maps are researched and drawn. And to our viewers, if you're interested in the map, if you have suggestions for places to include on Jenni Sparks' Seoul map, she told me she's really happy to hear them. So you can visit her official website to learn more and actually get in touch with the artist.
All right, great reporting. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
We had a bit of summery feel during the afternoon under dazzling sunshine. Now we are in for a significant change this weekend. Be prepared for some widespread rain starting from Jeju Island along with thunderstorms and strong gusts. Meanwhile, Gangwon-do province could see rain turning into snowfall. So this band of rain will bring cooler air to the country, but it is welcomed as the rain will help ease the dryness and clear the dust in the air. Tomorrow morning will be warmer under cloudy skies, kicking off at 13 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Daejeon, Busan waking up to a low of 11 degrees. Then highs will be around the norms, getting up to 18 degrees in the capital. Gyeongju at 19 degrees. Plan accordingly for your wet and much cooler weekend. And those of us in the capital could see rain lingering into Monday. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.